Before we can have a meaningful discussion about pole flexion, we first need to understand where the pole is located and how it functions within the anatomy of the horse. What is most often referred to as the pole is a bony protrusion at the back of the skull. This would be what we consider the location of the pole, but it is not the pole joint. The pole joint is located just behind this bony protrusion between the skull and the atlas, otherwise known as the first cervical vertebrae, or C1. This horse is displaying a very open pole joint. We'll overlay the skeletal drawing so that you can have a reference point. The pole is located here, and this is the angle that is very open, thus the open pole. This horse offers a very open pole in response to my picking up the contact. This is possibly due to being forced to work in a round pole before he was ready. I asked the horse for a lateral flexion to stretch the right side of his neck, helping to release some tension. Then I ask him to mobilize the jaw while I keep the right rein slightly tense. This gives him the opportunity to mobilize the jaw in a relaxed way and offer me pole flexion without force or with much less tension. If I treat this reaction to my contact as disobedience, it will only make the horse fearful and more tense. So I treat it instead as a misunderstanding from previous training. I pick him up again, lateral flexion, and now I'm asking for the jaw, and he quietly gives me the pole flexion. Here he is in a correct pole flexion. We superimpose the skeleton so you can see our reference points. Here is the pole, which is the highest point. He rounds the pole or flexes it while he lifts from the base of the neck. This is a correct pole flexion. Here I'm showing you the same process from the view of the front. I pick up, he opens the pole, I ask for a flexion, I resist slightly in my outside rein to ask for pole flexion. There, and he gives it to me. I bring him back to the center and perhaps take him the other way, resisting slightly in now my left rein and asking with the right. And here I ask for pole flexion straight, which he gives me very relaxed. Good boy. Let's look at it one more time. I'm going to pick up the contact. He does not open the pole quite as much. That's nice. He's getting less resistance. I'm asking him to the right, resisting slightly in the left. Notice that I'm also lifting my flexing hand so that I'm not working on his tongue. I want to work on the corners of his lips. And here he's giving me a nice pole flexion with a mobile mouth. Really good work. Let's gain some more insight about pole flexion, looking at some of the structures in the neck that influence the pole, how it's flexed, and how that affects the neck and the rest of the body. Here is the position of the pole. The green area indicates the nuchal ligament, its attachments, and the corresponding tissues with which it interacts. The blue area is the brachiocephalic muscle and the other tissues with which it interacts. The brachiocephalic muscle and the sternohyoid muscle work together to lift the base of the neck at the sternum. This group of muscles is also responsible for lifting the scapula and the forearm to send the horse's forelegs forward. Here we see an illustration of a horse that is overflexed at the pole. We will describe some of the detrimental effects of this posture in horses. The pole is here, and it is no longer the highest point. Instead of appropriately flexing at the pole joint, this horse is forced to flex at the junctions between C1 and C2, and C2 and C3. You can see clearly here that the nuchal ligament having to travel further over C1 and C2 causes a constriction to the ligament. This can cause damage and tearing of this ligament and its associated tissues. The brachiocephalic muscle has become slack and can inefficiently do its job, lifting the scapula and sending the forelegs in front of the horse with full expression. All of these effects in combination cause the horse to tip forward onto the forehand with no other recourse. It's simple biomechanics. Let's look at our example horse one more time. I ask for pole flexion, asking for the jaw to stay mobile. The brachiocephalic muscle is attached to the jaw. Tension in the jaw will make its way through the entire front end of the horse. So forcing pole flexion traps the front end of the horse, and I just don't want that. You can see that the horse is remaining very relaxed with a mobile and relaxed jaw. He does open his pole a bit there, but as I quietly work, he begins to release and find the pole flexion with the pole as the highest point. Even in the few minutes I've been working with the horse, his tension and open pole is relaxing, and I'm able to ask him for the pole without a lateral flexion. He's beginning to understand more and more clearly with relaxation and no force. The education of the mouth is what I'm looking for here. I want clear understanding. He doesn't open the pole as much with this last time. He offers a nice pole flexion, correct one, in the same straight position. So now I can go to work. On a final note, many people believe that pole flexion equals collection, and this is not necessarily true. A good and positive pole flexion provides another spring system in the mouth and the neck for the horse to receive the messages being brought to him by the bit. A good pole flexion flexes at the pole joint, keeping it at the highest place, while focusing on the very best balance for the horse. In this way, you can perform collected maneuvers as the horse becomes stronger, more supple, and more educated.